It's 5:05 on Thursday afternoon. Welcome, everyone. My name is Sven. I'm joined with two people from Intellect, Stefan Janssen van Rensburg and Rian Lawrence. Between the three of us, we run the two user groups that basically meet every 2 months. Should we say, mine is the Power BI one and theirs is the BI one, both of which relate to the geography of Johannesburg. And so we have our first session of the year. So I'm thrilled that people could join. And as always, I hope that the content is interesting and enjoyable for everyone. Obviously, you've chosen to spend your Thursday afternoon with us. So hopefully it's a good use of your time. Okay, so whilst we get ourselves ready to rock and roll, on the screen, you can see that we're going to use Slido later on, and there's a code, but there's also in the chat, there is a quick link. We're not going to use it right away, but you may as well just click on it so that when the time is right later on in the session, you'll be ready for that. Okay, so we're going to kick off officially. Let's just start with the agenda. Introduction and welcome. That's me. I'm busy doing that now. At rather short notice, the BI news section, I'll also be doing that. The blue section is basically the main content of this afternoon's session. So I'll be doing the quick news section. Then we've got the dashboard roast. That's actually going to be run by Rian and Stefan, but we do encourage participation from the audience, and you'll see what that means as we get into that section. So it's a dashboard roast. There's a wonderful picture. Anyway, thank you to the Intellect chaps. Actually, it was their idea for this session as well as the sessions to follow, and there'll be more on that when we get to introduce that topic. Okay, that's the new concept that we're working with for the year. Then we've got our usual session, which is the BI flashes, one or more. In this case, Tiaan is taking us through a particular BI flash to do with filtering dashboards on the current user and date. So we look forward to that. I am then going to call for volunteers. I'm also going to talk about the Enterprise DNA prize, lucky draw, and then we'll end the session. The sessions usually last between an hour and an hour and a half. So around about 6, 6:15, 6:30, somewhere around there. We are recording the session, so that's good. We've got some etiquette. If we can just go through that slide quickly. Please, if you can, disable video and mute yourself so that there's no background noises or anything like that. Obviously, if you've got a question, we do encourage that. Put it in the chat. Depending on who's speaking, it might make sense to address the question straight away. Otherwise, we might hold it a little bit later on. Raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question there and then. That's absolutely fine. And please, we encourage that kind of participation. And then just your Zoom name. Sometimes, depending on how we do the prizes, we prefer a longer name, first name, surname type story, especially if you've got a common name. But in this case, we're doing a different method for the prize giving. We'll cover that in a little bit. Okay, so that covers the etiquette and so on. Moving to the next slide. This is definitely not what Justin used to do. I only got involved just a couple of hours ago. We had some logistical issues and complications, and as a result, Justin couldn't do the presentation, so I stepped in. So as a result, it's very much last minute. I apologize upfront for that. And also, it's only Power BI related. I haven't got anything about Click or Tableau or any of the other providers. They may have news. I just haven't extracted that, and neither did I do that beautiful data thing that Justin normally does. So I hope you're not too disappointed. It is just a bit last minute. That's all. Anyway, so what I decided to do is just have a look at the features that have come out. Well, maybe I should say more the blog posts that have come out on the Microsoft website between our last session, which was in roughly middle of November, end of November, all the way up till now. You may or may not know, Power BI releases features every month, except for the month of January. They don't do a Power BI desktop feature release then in the month of January. But there's more than enough other general Power BI news, whether it is to do with the Power BI service, whether it's to do with the mobile side of things, or embedded, or the developer side of things. There's plenty. In fact, actually, it can be somewhat overwhelming to try and stay up to date with all of these things. That's why we try and do it, you know, in the news section, just to try and call out some of the potentially more important news items. So I just want to make sure that I've gone through everything I want to cover. So I've mentioned that. I've mentioned that. Okay, cool. In terms of, you know, the list, what I did is I went through the blog post. I've got 4 pages that I'm going to show, just with, you know, just with the main headlines or whatever, and then I'm going to go into 2 specifically that I think are particularly good. I'm not going to talk about the November desktop update because Justin did do that last time. Actually, and shortly after that, there was also the release of the feature, the new formatting pane, which is a major change. And you obviously would have all, when you've done that upgrade, you would have spotted it and just sort of said, well, where do I go from now or from here? Hopefully you're getting into grips with it. It actually becomes quite intuitive after you've used it for a while. And if you are still struggling with it, I'll just suggest that you do use the search function at the top of the format pane, because if you search for labels or data labels, it'll just bring up everything to do with data labels, regardless of which tab and which sub-tab and subcategory it resides on. So the search function is actually really cool. All right, good, excellent, tick, 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 done all of that. Right, cool. So in this case, I'm just going to use my mouse for a bit. I've had a look at this process mining thing. I think it's still a bit early days on this one, but that could become a really good thing in time. The report server, that's for your on-premise Power BI. They normally do a release once a quarter. There's the January one. There's some stuff about Azure DevOps and data flows, general availability. I'm just going to go through this fast. It's really not meant to be detailed. I'm going to call out a few others later on though. I'm going to skip that. Okay. I think this one's quite a cool one. If you're a developer and you're comfortable with APIs and so on, if you want to trigger certain exports of reports or pages, you can do so, and it'll go to PDF, PowerPoint, or PNG visual type. So I think that's quite cool, and you don't have to log in to trigger, you know, an email subscription or you know, that type of story. You can actually do it via an API call. So I quite like that one. Obviously, under certain circumstances. This little note here about, oh yeah, that one I skipped over, but this WebView 2, that is going to suddenly just be foisted on you. I think it's actually in the February release. So I suddenly looked at that and thought, oh, I'm not sure if I've updated my my settings on my Windows machine, and then I found that it was already updated. So I must have gone through that process, or maybe a Windows update did it. Something happened, but this needs to be enabled on your machine, and I don't particularly remember doing it, so I think it happens by itself. That allows a different programming method for Power BI Desktop, which I think is easier for them, which means they're saying they're going to be faster with their releases of new functionality. So that's pretty interesting. Let me go to the next page. Okay, so this one is one I'm going to specifically talk about in a few minutes' time. Hybrid tables. Okay, gateway updates, data protection, integrate Power BI reporting to .NET apps. I skipped that. On announcing on-demand loading capabilities for large language models. This goes together with this asynchronous refresh, and obviously that's going to mean something to some people and mean absolutely nothing to other people. Basically, if you've got a very large data set and you want to use tools like tools that can handle very granular refreshing capabilities, like in batches and things like that, you might want to use SQL Management Studio or some of the other tools, even PowerShell. They are synchronous tools which don't work so well. They have to have a connection open all the time. Power BI solved that by going to an asynchronous method. I haven't tried it. It probably is there. I think you've got a large data set and it fails halfway through. Yeah, you would want the ability to sort it out with fancy tools. And I think this is a step in the right direction. Skipping over some of that. Okay, streaming data flows November. That's cool. 1 or 2 other things. Okay, I'm skipping that whole page. Okay, and then where's the other one I was looking for? This one here. This is the one I'm going to call out in a few seconds. I think that's a really good feature. This one as well, create connected pivot tables. This is now Excel Online. Okay, I don't actually use it that often, but it is quite cool that Excel Online can have a live connection to your Power BI model. That's what's that about. And then, yeah, Premium Gen 2. There was actually a previous one for Embedded Gen 2 was also happened in November. Okay, so fine. That was the quick whirlwind view, but here's the two focus areas. Hybrid tables. Okay, it's a premium feature, so know that. Secondly, possibly still early days for it, so it's one of those things. It's a preview feature. It's not ready yet. Microsoft does that. They get it out there. People start to use it. They give feedback. They make suggestions and enhancements. And then when it becomes generally available, it's something that's really very powerful. This has the ability to be enormously useful. It basically says you've got a composite model. You've got a direct query model that's handling the very immediate or most recent transactions, and it's direct query, which means it's not an import model. The data is, the Power BI is talking to the underlying data source and retrieving data, even if it was posted a second ago. So it's very real time, okay? And then in the time period just prior to that, so maybe a few days in this particular month, you would do an import model with incremental refresh. Okay, so it's not importing the entire data set, it's just importing the new records for that particular time period. That's on the import method, okay? And then the archive section, which is obviously static, that would obviously be done as an import, but it would stay there and not refresh because of the incremental policy. So it would mean you've got up to the second data. It would mean that you drastically reduce the amount of data that you need to import. So actually, I think that's an awesome feature. Very, very excited about that. Cool. And then the other one I wanted to mention, and it is a bit small on my page. Hopefully you can see it okay. For those who've been in Power BI and exporting to Excel, I'm not talking about analyzing Excel. This is export to Excel. You used to only have these two options, okay, summarized data or underlying data, and they were okay, but they failed when you had a hierarchy in your visual, a hierarchy on rows or on columns. So as an example, if your columns were year and then 12 months underneath that, or that's on columns, and then on rows you might have your chart of accounts, turnover, and then all your accounts underneath that. That, when it exports, is hideous, okay? Whereas this new layout here, if you tick on that bright orange target, it will look like this in Excel, assuming, well, sorry, it will land up in Excel like it does look in Power BI in the matrix visual. And I'm personally very excited about that for our clients and so on. Okay, so that was a very, very quick run through of the news, very biased only towards Power BI, and I apologize for that. Cool. Oh no, so right, we now move to the dashboard roast section. That slide I'm just going to leave for later on. So Stefan and Rian, are you guys ready to jump in? Before they kick off, I'll mention to you that it's a series. It's a whole lot of episodes. Actually, this is the first episode. I think it was Stefan's creativity that came up with all the episode names. Very clever. You'll see that when I call for volunteers later on. We're not going to use Slido for the interactivity here. Instead, we're going to use a different tool that allows you to upvote things and so on. The guys will talk to you about that. Just bear in mind, this is not meant to be training. Okay, this is just meant to be insight into best practice. Okay, so it's not a how-to guide. It's just some best practice, and we're going to explain more about that later on. All right. Enough from me. I'll leave it to you guys, Stefan and Rian. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sen. Yeah, let me just give some context for how we got to this. We were looking for some ideas, we're always looking for new ideas to make the BI user group interesting. Stefan stumbled across something where they said you can do a critique of basically anything. So the idea was a dashboard critique, but that doesn't sound a lot of fun, so we decided to call it a roast. So for those of you who don't know what a roast is, I don't know if it's even still going on, but they used to have this almost like a reality show or game show, I don't know what you would call it, but where there's some celebrity that's roasted. Maybe something that's more familiar to us in the development world is fines, where you would hand out fines to someone. And yeah, normally it's a public event. It's humiliating, it's funny. And yeah, we decided let's do a dashboard roast. So since it's fairly unlikely that we would get anyone that would be willing to offer up their dashboard to be roasted in front of everyone, we decided we'll actually just develop one and try and follow bad practice, if that's even a phrase, or disregard good practice. And so we built in a lot of mistakes in this dashboard here. And we actually need the audience tonight to identify that for us. So we're simply going to click through the dashboard, and we want the audience to guide us to, you know, whether it's starting all the way back in Power Query, looking at the model, looking at visualizations, maybe some DAX, you can guide us there. So if you'd like to, you know, make a contribution, use the raise hand functionality, and I'll just show you now where that is in case you don't know. Yeah, then we also made a list of all the mistakes we made, and just bear in mind it's not necessarily mistakes. Some of it could be subjective, and that could be open for debate. So it's more things, there's better ways to do it than you know, the mistakes that we made in here. So yeah, if you're doing some of that, it's an opportunity for you to learn or just to see a better way of doing it. Okay. Sorry for my voice. I've been off sick for a while, so still recovering. Okay. Okay, Stefan, you can see my screen here, right?
Yeah, okay. Now that's Microsoft Paint.
Yes, this is just Paint. So just wanted to show where the raise hand capability is. So if you go down in the reactions in Zoom and you click on that, you'll see there's a raise hand option. Okay. Anyways, so we chose a character who developed this dashboard. That character's name is Emmett. So if you've seen the Lego movie, that's the main character in the Lego movie. And Emmett is a very optimistic guy, and he just loves working, he loves life, and for him, everything is awesome. There's even a theme song to the Lego movie that it gets stuck in your head, unfortunately, where they just keep on saying everything is awesome. So yeah, in this dashboard, everything is not awesome. And yeah, you'll see the mistakes or the disregard of best practice now. Okay, so that's our character. I'm gonna go right over to the first page, and then Stefan, since I'm screen sharing, you can just monitor the raise hands and yeah, just guide us in that. I'm basically driving, Stefan is navigating this. Okay.
Awesome. Just wanted to add that Emmett is very optimistic and he's a little straw man, so please don't hold back. You can light him on fire if you want. Or his work, rather. Okay. Right off the bat, Rian, can we zoom in on the title of this dashboard, please?
Yes. Do I have to? I should actually be using Zoom it, but anyways.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the title there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
Any volunteers for what went wrong here? Oh, and by the way, we are tracking. There's a list. We are tracking who's making mention of the mistakes, and we'd like to see who spot the most mistakes at the end. Okay, any volunteers? Sane, do you want to go first?
I I was on mute. No, that would be unfair, surely, because I've seen this pretty work already. So look, I'm still trying to get over the pie charts, but anyway, I'll leave it to the rest of the group.
Yeah,
Is
so
anyone
feel
going
free
to raise
your
their hand, make a comment?
Yes. I see we have Jeffrey.
You didn't enlarge the label, so it's kind of chopping it. You can't see everything on the label.
Yeah, good point. So you need to scroll to actually see the title of the page. You can just, once you land on it, overview page of what. And yes, this is a title. This is an easy place to identify it. But I think this happens in lots of small labels as well, where you need to scroll. So that's something to always, just watch out for, that you don't make that mistake. Stefan, who's next?
I actually can't see who's raising their hand. I'm not sure why.
Oh, it's in the participants.
Oh, the participants tab. Okay.
Yes.
Let me see if I can get there. Oh, okay. No, I think I know what is happening. Okay, now I can see everyone. Okay, cool. Yeah, so Tiaan has his hand raised. You can go first. Go for it.
So I don't know, do we just jump in anyway and maybe fix it up, or do we just focus on certain things?
Yeah, maybe just call it out, and then we'll spend some time later on fixing all these mistakes.
Okay.
Yeah, so today we're just identifying it.
Okay, yeah, so as the gentleman mentioned, the title that's wrapping around, your filters are all over the place.
So that's easier on the side.
Yeah, and your date filter at the top. I'm gonna take a wild stab and say the graph on the maps are not set up correctly, because all of those data look the same. So it's probably a missing reference somewhere, or a lookup table that's not linking up. Your business type is one word, the pie graph, the layout, colors. Yeah, lots of stuff.
Whoa, that was not. You said business labels.
Like business type, it's made one word. So yeah.
Oh yes, yeah.
Sales
actually, I would even add, it's all caps and there's no spaces. It's not easily readable. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
Thanks,
we have a term for those kinds of column names, and we call them obnoxious names, or angry column names. Awesome. No, thanks for your input. Okay, Adrian, you have your hand raised. What can you see?
Oh my goodness, with a hand raised. Okay, great. Let's jump into this.
Go for it.
Tiaan has run away with the title section of it, but what would actually be great to see where the title ends and where the actual report starts. So just putting in a brief line there, and I'm a bit of a stickler when it comes to this, where the company logo, which I assume is Emmett, is for me left. I like reading stuff left to right. So apart from naming everything that everybody else has named, you need to have that distinction on what is actually a page header and what is the rest of the report. And then, yeah, to add on to the whole screaming out names, the sale amount underneath that by product is also a very good shouting thing that he hasn't mentioned.
Yeah.
You said that.
Yeah, while we're talking just on different, different titles, that sales amount by product is also one that we haven't mentioned there. So everything is basically in caps lock and together without spaces.
Cool. Thanks,
Yep.
Albert.
Okay, cool. Next person is Michael Johnson. I'm just going down the list. I think it orders them by, who raised their hand first.
I think it does.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's obviously been a lot, so we'll just go. So I'm going to go contrary to what Adrian mentioned. The one is moving the logo into the top left-hand corner, right? If you use the whole view thing, Stephen view, most important information should be in the top right-hand corner. So title definitely, but logo is wasted space, right? So it should almost be in the, if anything, it should actually be on the bottom right-hand corner because it's the least important. It's probably the least useful bit on the page. The thing I'm going to comment on is you've used a map that's taken up most of the page, but it's the map visual itself is not actually giving you much in the way of useful information. Maps are great if you're trying to depict something by geographical space, but what is this giving us is a bar chart, not simpler and better, right? Then obviously there's just the you've obviously got a lot of defaults. I'm assuming sales amount is probably an implicit measure. You've got the default titles, count of, category, and country, and then you've got a broken measure just in your tables. Leave that for.
Okay,
that's
broken table there. Yes, yes. Okay, so let's quickly pause on the map, and then the next one was the implicit measure, and then let's look at the broken table as well. So on the map, the reason why we added this one in and made it so big as well, normally the map visual is the wow factor for someone that's very new to Power BI. They love using maps, and maps can be useful. But I would totally agree that something like this, if you're looking at the number of cells by category, this would most likely be better visualized by just a bar chart. There's no use really in seeing it across the countries.
Just also think about what Europe would look like if every European country bought products, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then the implicit measure. So let's have a look at that. And please, I'm just driving here, so you can tell me to go and click. So you are correct. I'm using it's an implicit measure. Michael, do you maybe just want to add why implicit measure is that typically a bad idea?
So so essentially, when you create a explicit measure, right, you're encapsulating business logic. So then it's well defined. It's not accidental because often people just drag on the number. They don't necessarily realize it's some. It could have been something else, right? Maybe you meant to do max. You might not have picked it up. But also, if you go and design, let's say, 300 pages, right? Please don't design 300 pages on a report. But you use that implicit measure, and then there was a business change to the logic that you had to go and adjust 300 pages. You deserve what you get, right? Versus if you have an explicit measure, it's one change, it's consistent across everything that you've got.
Okay, and then next, I'll just go to this broken table here. So you can see that Emmett tried to do some type of group by. He couldn't get it to work, and group bys can be challenging in DAX sometimes. And he just left it there, so he didn't delete his work. And then obviously for someone that needs to take this over in future, they won't know what the table is for, what was the intent, is it being used anywhere, and obviously there's tools to check that. But so it's not making it easily maintainable in future.
Final one, should we throw one last one? You're missing a date table, right?
Yes, that's right. Okay, shall I peek here? So there's no date tables. Okay, so there's a couple of mistakes here, but I'm just going to go back. Because I assume there's some other comments on what we've shown so far. Yes, Stefan.
Yeah, okay, so we have two names up, but I just wanted to ask, let's just give it back to the audience. Does anyone know why you should add your own date tables and not use the what do you call them, the automatic date tables for Power BI? Well, I see lots of guys that have their hand up still, Esther and Sergio. I'm not sure if you want to answer that question. I know it was a while ago.
Okay, yeah, I can try to answer that. It's good to have a date table because through a date table, you are able to then connect you should never directly connect your fact tables or your transaction tables. So if you want to filter through dates, it's best to have a single calendar table, which you then connect to all your other tables so that dates everything consistently connects.
Yeah, that's a good point. It also brings down the model size a lot. So I think the default data tables go all the way back to like somewhere in the 1900s. And if you only have data for the last 5 years, then you don't need all of that in your model. So it's unnecessary bloating of the model size. But yeah, you had your name raised, so you can keep going. What else did you spot was wrong with the dashboard?
Oh, yeah, okay. The sales amount by product pie chart is too cluttered. I don't know how to make sense of it. I can't even see the numbers, and also the legend is not clear. It's mountain, 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 road, road. So it's not really distinct. And also when you zoomed in, I saw that there's even more entries that we're not able to see. So it's not a good representation of the sales amount by product. Yeah.
So the reason why we also created this one is I think one of people's most favorite charts are pie charts. And in some circles, yeah, people almost get fined if they use pie chart. And this is a subjective thing. I don't think pie charts are a big problem, but it becomes really challenging if you want to compare more than 3 categories. So I would say it's safe to use a pie chart as long as you're restricting it to 2 or 3 categories. And so we just used all the categories here, hundreds. I don't even know how many there are.
Yeah, I think people like them because they're colorful, but I do agree that if it's a small number of, you just want to get a relative proportions of things, and it's a small number of things that you're looking at, then it's definitely not bad.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a very good point. Okay, we have 2 more people up with their hands now. Let's give it to Ezra first. Ezra Sahar. Ezra is still muted.
Mute. Hi, can you hear me
There
now?
we go. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, my comment was one to do with the pie chart, you know, which is sales amount by product, which is wrong. Okay, the other things I saw, you add many-to-many relationship there, which is also, it's not good practice to do that. You know, I'm sure you can find different way to have one-to-many or many-to-one. That's not good practice to do many-to-many. And those 2 comments that I've got, yeah, that's right. Those the 2 comments that I think they are not good practice. Also to do with the title, which already mentioned.
Yeah, there's even an inconsistency in the titles. So we've got small table names or small lowercase table names and then uppercase column names. So yeah, it's confusing to look at. I think naturally you would think it's the other way around, but then it's also a very good point to point out the many-to-many relationship. I have worked with many-to-many relationships in in some of our models, and actually no, sorry, I'm thinking of bidirectional filters. No, we've never worked with many-to-many relationships.
There are exceptional situations that you can do that, but as a practice is wrong. Common practice is wrong.
Even if you think about it too much, it stops making sense. Yeah.
There's something else to note here, so I'll just give a hint. It's to do with normalization. And then also looking at all the tables included here. So that's 2 hints if someone like to raise their hand. But yeah, who's next?
Until then, well, Sven, you're up next, actually.
Right, there's one on the other page, but I'll just stick with this one. I mean, absolutely, many-to-many is a big no-no, and I would say similarly would be the bidirectional cross-filtering mechanism. Absolutely, there needs to be a single direction there. I mean, there are some cases that bidirectional is okay, but you've got to be very, very sure you know why you need it and that you can't solve it another way, because otherwise you've got some unintended consequences. So that's on the data modeling side. I'll leave the normalization for someone else. If you don't mind, just quickly going to the visual page, please. I've got a personal thing against the slider. Okay, so there's that date slicer at the top. It's taking up an enormous amount of space, firstly. So the slider is not necessary, especially if you're at a day granularity, because if you wanted to try and get the, 17th of February, you're going to actually have to be very precise with your mouse to get to that. So as a result, you are unlikely to ever use that thing. It's fine if you have to use it on years, but definitely not on days. So in fact, in this case, why use up the space? Get rid of the slider and then just make it the from and to dates and be done with this. That's my story.
No, that's a very good point. I think lots of people also, when they start off with Power BI, it's nice to put in a slider because it's nice and interactive. You know, you can interact with your report that way. But yeah, there's not always the best way of getting of slicing your data on a visual. Cool. Up next, oh, Joffrey raised his hand and then lowered it again. I still remember your name, Joffrey. Do you still want to go?
Yes, please. Thanks.
Okay,
on the visual page, on the title, I would have probably centered the title and then made everything uppercase. And then on the subtitle of count by category by country, I think that's not a really descriptive title. Maybe you might have said number of something. Then on where there's region, business type, employee and model, I would have put those all in like in a straight line. And then where it says sales amount by product, maybe I would have split sales and amount. I think that's still the field name as it was pulled through from the database. And then I'm in agreement with someone who says the legend is very cluttered. Then here I'm now guessing on the normalization. I would probably have used the star schemas or something for this type of reporting, or a snowflake if necessary. So that's my suggestions.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah.
On the normalization, if I can add, I've heard a lot of mention of a star schema, and you always try to normalize to a type of star schema because that's just how our Power BI is optimized to work with. You can see that Emmett had the best intentions here to do some level of normalization, but he created a table called customer sales. Like, what does that even mean? So it looks like he's kept sales and customer information in the same table. And he has actually a dimension table for products, which is great, but that's where it ends.
Rian, what's the relationship between those tables? What fields are they based? You see that product key and product key. Okay. Okay. We have some more hands. It's old hands. I'm not sure if it's old hands with same names, but Estra, you're up at the top right now. Is that an old hand or a new hand?
Can you hear me now? No, I already spoke. I mean, I already.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, cool. Then the next up is Tejo again. Is that also an old hand or a new hand?
Oh yeah, I have something additional to say.
Oh, go for it.
So on the dashboard side, I just personally like borders. Having borders around it just makes it a bit, because when I was looking count of category by that confusing title of the map graphic, map visual, I just like separating things using borders. And then the second thing on the model view, I see that as you're mentioning, there's customer sales and sales, and it looks like there's duplication. Like the sales are categorized by customers on the one table, but it's essentially the same information. So what I would have done is I would have created a customer dimension table, which and then have a separate sales table, and then have the customer dimension table linked to the sales table in a one-to-many relationship.
Yeah, that would make much more sense. Cool. And then there's a very big glaring issue that you can see here on this page with all the data tables. I think Sven, you're next, but you have your hand raised. So,
it's a new hand. Teko did touch on it. It had to do with the normalization. I wanted to leave it for others, but I've just been watching to see if other hands have been raised, and so I figured I may as well jump in. Yeah, so Teko, you're right. You would obviously make sure that you have your transaction or your fact table, which is the many side, and then you'd have a customer dimension, and the customer dimension would have all the information about the customer, so where they're located, the customer name, and so on. That would be the dimension table, and that would be the one side of the relationship, which means you no longer need to have all of that customer type information in your transaction table. And in exactly the same way, you don't need, like I can see in the sales table, it says color and country and category. So country might be your customer country, and then color and category might be to do with your products. So you would get rid of, and I'm talking about on the far left, the sales table on the far left. Yeah, I would take all of those columns out. Your transaction tables need to be very narrow, meaning only just your keys and your values, and not anything describing your customers or your products or your regions or your calendars and that kind of story.
On that note, I'm going to go to the Power Query side. I don't know if it's even, yeah, it is still called Power Query. So let me show you something here. And I'm hoping that this is going to give some new hints. Yeah, the people who had their hands up for something else, just keep them there. But I would like to get some comments on what we're doing here.
Tiaan, my hand was off the screens, so I would just like to answer something on this. Before you actually go into here, go just back to that model view. And I think that is where we're going next, is obviously Power Query, so I'm happy with that. But if you said that products is a dimension, then your dimension should not have a many-to-many relationship, but a one-to-many. So then it seems like there's a duplication in your dimension, and that would cause your fact for that duplication to double or triple or whatever the case might be. So be very careful for duplication in your products table if that is considered as a dimension table.
That's right. So your counts will likely be wrong.
So then we just have to confirm if products table is a dimension table, we need to sort out the duplication on product key. If product key is your primary key, just over that, what is your relationship between the tables? If I recall, it was product key. So product key in this dimension should be unique.
Yeah, so I think what's happening here is that you have one product is being sold many times, but one sale also can have more than one product. And that's what's causing the many-to-many relationship. So yeah, I think to solve that, you would need maybe a bridging table, or perhaps just keep it in the main table, but I'd probably use a bridging table in this scenario.
And in this case, it's most likely also a customer involved in multiple sales.
That's true.
And getting multiple products on different sales. So that could be also what's duplicating it somewhere.
If I can come in, I'm sorry.
Ezra, go for it.
If I can come in, you know, right now we've got like a 3 table, but you can create a lot of dimension table, like you take the country, small table, which reduce basically the overload on the system, will be much faster. If you take the channel, the categories, you can put them in a dimension table, small one, and will work much faster than in every record of sales. You know, basically in here you've got, I mean, a model that need to work need a lot of work because right now the way it's designed is definitely no good.
Oh, that's a very good point.
Can I just say that in this case, it was Rian and Stefan trying very hard to do bad things. Okay, but please bear in mind that if it is that you've got the your settings to say automatically detect relationships, you may have something similar to this. Probably it won't allow the many-to-many because it knows that that's bad, but it may well do the multi-directional, the bi-directional, and it will also probably connect product key to product key. Meanwhile, you actually want it, you know, sometimes it connects it to itself instead of with a star schema. And also it might find an ID column and link it to another column called ID. Meanwhile, they're two separate IDs altogether. So I just wanted to make that point that sometimes Power BI will do it thinking it's helping you, but it's not.
Yeah, those automated tools are generally a good place to start, but you need to make sure that it's doing the right thing as well. Okay. Right, so back on this. Michael, did you raise your hand for this part? Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I'm assuming that's
okay.
It's where you're going, right? You've got the hard coding of the file name. So basically, if Rian decides to publish this, it's not going to be able to refresh, nor can you email it to anybody. So it should be on some sort of shared accessible resource.
SharePoint at least, at the very least. So.
Yeah,
that's a very good point.
I assume that's where you were going with that.
Yes. And then just look at how these other tables were created. Any comments on that?
Well, they're all derived from the same source, right? So you went out of your way to create that terrible structure. So that's the point of this talk, right? Yeah, look, I mean, part of that, I don't think that product doesn't make sense that it's many to many. I mean, I assume you actually change the relationship. That's not you don't actually have duplicate product keys in the product table, I'm assuming, but maybe you did.
No, we created this about a month ago, so I actually can't remember that one.
So the table that we drew in the first one, just look at the dependencies again. The first table that we drew in was customer sales, I think. That's the actual file that pretty much how it looked. Was it sales? It's
sales. It's just sales.
Okay. So sales is the main table that we got from Excel, and then from that we also created products, and we used, I think we duplicated sales to create customer sales. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it's a duplicate query for customer sales and a reference query for products.
Then I was about to say it's referenced. It's not duplicated, it's referenced.
Yeah, so you can see this one, yeah. It's product sales. There you go. It's a reference query.
Sales.
And then this one is a duplicate query. Okay, yeah. So
in which case you're loading the same data twice, as opposed to referencing it, which would mean it loads once, and it might be used twice, but it loads once. Whereas now you've got the two transaction tables loading two separate times.
Yeah, so saying on that one, I always thought that reference queries were better until I read an article of Chris Webb explaining exactly how it works in the background. And somehow it's, when you're doing a reference query, it's still going to load it every single time that you're referencing it. Honestly, I can't remember what the final outcome of the article was. So yeah.
I might suggest that the loading part is yes, okay, but the drawing the data from the underlying source, so from your server, that would need to be done twice if it was two separate loads as you've done now, two separate connections as you've done now. But the actual process of loading, it's not going to, if it was a reference table, it's not going to re-download all the data from the server again. That's all.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that's my presumption. Yeah.
Sorry, I can actually comment on that. It's true what Sven says, but then you have to switch off parallel loading, then it would write all of them sequentially, and then they would run it as one query by one query, actually caching away the reference table, slowing down the whole process. If you don't have that bit on, it handles each one of those queries independently. A nice tool to use to actually explore this is Visualize Your Refresh. I would look for the link and throw it in here, but there you can actually go and check what is the difference between switching on that bit and off that bit in the settings, as well as what is the pros and cons to duplicate versus reference.
That's a good point. And that thing, Visualize Your Refresh, I just scribbled it down. I'll have a look at that afterwards. I'm very intrigued by that kind of thing. So that's good. Thank you. Guys,
like
we
a
must
cool
just,
idea for a flash.
mention the time. So we've still got some time, but we must just be aware.
Okay. Thanks then. Stefan, can you remember, was there something else we can maybe just quickly point it out here in Power Query?
There is one more thing. So sales is actually not being used in the model, if you remember correctly. So if you go back to the model, I think it's hidden. And what Emmett must have done here, I don't know what he was thinking, was that he started with sales, created customer sales, and then didn't want to have sales in his report. So then instead of disabling load in Power Query, he just hid the table in the visual layer. This is obviously very bad practice, because that table is still then going to impact the refresh times, and it's still going to impact performance on the reports, on the report level. So when you open the report, even if it's on the service, it'll take longer to pop up when you open it up for the first time, because it's also going to be loading in that table into the visual layer. So yeah, best practice is then to disable the load on sales.
Where is the measure coming from now? Or your implicit measure? Because if you're using the implicit measure from sales, it's still going to go through sales, right?
Let's see. Oh, that's from the customer sales.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely disable the load on all the stepping tables.
And there was also okay, it will take really long to find this, but I need to point this one out. So we put in some bad data here, so just the NA into a mount column. So yeah, Emma didn't make any effort of cleaning out the data, and then this stays a general type. And you'll notice that when we look at the second visual page, there's also, you can see some errors here. Okay, so there was no employee column in the data we had, so we just added it to do some other things with it. But you can see it's having that #NA, which is a Excel error actually. And Emma didn't clean out, he didn't do data cleaning basically. And that's so easy, because you can immediately see there's 53% errors in this field.
It might even be worthwhile just to toss that column.
Yeah. And just looking at dates, if you look at the types here, building a SSA's cube as a key, it would be useful. But generally, yeah, we could likely have it as change it to a date, convert it to a date, and then here you can see all the date key. It's actually a type text. It's not converted to a date, and that created some issues downstream.
If I may add, also to change the naming of those columns. So when you plot them on the screen, on the canvas, come with the right name instead of changing them all the time. So some of those naming, it should be more meaningful and presentable on the screen. You change it in the beginning, then you don't have to change it on either the table or the graph or whatever you presented.
Yeah, and then also,
if I can,
go for it,
sorry, if I can give a quick tip here, some cases you might have a lot of columns. So there are ways in Tabular Editor, I believe, that you get these standard recipes where it can actually rename all your columns for you and change it to sentence case. In this case, it's not that easy because you need to add the spaces, so maybe you can't really automate that.
Yeah. So I just wanted to add, it's a very good point to do that in the Power Query side of things, because then you only need to change it once as well. And if you go and add new pages later on or change the name here and there, you won't have to go back and change it. You have to just change it in one place in Power Query and it'll propagate through your entire report. Yeah, I think we can go to the next page.
There is still something in the calculation. Maybe we can go there.
Okay.
Go to that one at the end. So this would be the second page.
So this is the historic sale. I think this is Emma's attempt at a drill through page. Tiaan, I see your hand was up. Is it for something on this page or from longer ago?
Yeah, just more related to the data query side. I mean, from that first page, it only looked like we were using like 5 of the columns. So yeah, I would definitely kill all the data we're not using. You cut down on the data set size.
Yeah. We actually didn't think about that one, but yeah, that's good practice. Only import the columns into the model that you are planning on using. Also makes it much easier to build new visuals.
No, that's actually good.
Okay, so anyone see anything glaring here in terms of figures we're comparing? So I'm just going to give hints as we're running out of time. Maybe something here in terms of the colors. Any comments on the cards down here? Yeah.
Well, I have something that immediately, what's the word, rubs me the wrong way, and that's the fact that you have to scroll horizontally on the table. I absolutely hate that. I'd rather have 2 tables or something else, but never ever do I want to scroll horizontally on a table like this.
Yeah, so this is the almost everything table that it just has all the columns.
Tiaan, you raised your hand as well.
Comment on a few of those things. So for the amounts, definitely add some rands or dollars or whatever currency is they're using. Obviously, the column names will be fixed if we fix it in the original data set. And then I would definitely do something on the cards that you can actually see where they are. Just everything white on a white background just doesn't look like it. And yes, a table that you need to scroll, it's terrible, but sometimes there's just no way to get around it. There's always some requirement of we want a page where we can see all the fields. Yeah, that's one of those things, I guess.
Tiaan, what I've thanks, Stefan. What I've done there in the past is, secondary information. I would put in a second table, maybe at the bottom, and then basically explain that they need to click on a record to see further detail. So they can still see all detail on a page.
If I may come in, it's wrong practice to have the slider in the bottom. There's not such a thing that sometimes you need it. You can always create another view for concentrated information, because that's bad practice to do that. To go with the slider, you need to see the end of the table and so on. I disagree that sometimes, maybe in exceptional situation, but as a practice, you shouldn't do it.
Yeah, if you're building your own reports, yes, but if a client is paying you and telling you want to see it that way, then that's life.
The point is that a lot of clients today will tell you a lot of things because they don't understand the Power BI, and they want a lot of things that maybe they brought it from different application. You should show them. You do what they want, but show them the alternative. You'll see that they will go for the alternative. Because if there is information that go outside the screen, you can present it in different table also and so on. You don't have to clutter the screen with too much, because they wouldn't understand. They will understand their number, but I mean, it's not easy to read. That's what all Power BI about, to view the information quick, nicely in a graph. And that's the aim of Power BI, not to be another Excel with 100 columns.
Absolutely. We are almost running out of time, so there are a few more hands up. So I'm just going to give those guys a chance as well. So I see next up, Tiaan, you just lowered your hand. Next up is Sven.
Yeah, super quickly. I mean, with that, to get rid of the horizontal scrolling bar, which I also personally hate, I would certainly sort out the date column. It's got time, and all of it is midday or 12 a.m. So I would make that. I would get rid of the time aspect, and then also I would wrap the column headers. So custom reseller country region, which is about the 4th column. It's very wide, even though, you know. Okay, well, by the way, I can also see it's horrendous. It's got zip codes and things like that instead of states. So it's obviously dirty data, but I mean, you can wrap the column headers just talking about wrapping. I personally hate wrapping values. So I don't have values wrapping. So, you know, otherwise sometimes you've got a narrow row and other times you've got a tall row. You know, so I don't do that. Anyway, and I would just comment, because I don't think people are going to spot it. And I've had sort of the benefit of inside knowledge from these guys, from Emmett and his team. That purple bar, the purple line at the top, it's obviously needing to be on a different axis, because you can basically not see what it's, you know, any movement in it. And I'm not sure what count of extended amount is actually trying to do. I mean, if it's trying to count up the number of transactions, maybe there's a better way of doing that. Okay, count and count distinct, also important. But yeah, you definitely don't. I mean, to count distinct of an extended amount is really a meaningless answer. So put a second axis on it, and then count transaction ID or something like that to try and count up how many transactions you've had, something like that.
Yeah, so the problem in this case was that there's dirty data. So if we just look at extended amount, you know, still he used implicit measures, which is a bad idea, but because it's text, sum is not an option. So once again, a result of just not carrying out data cleaning. But yeah, definitely, if it was showing something useful, another axis, secondary axis or second chart or so would be useful. And while we're on this chart, I would just add, this is quite a flat graph. It becomes difficult to see changes like, you know, the relative changes if it's this flat. And I would argue that that's a subjective mistake. But normally it's better to, you know, represent it in this fashion or so, where it's less flat, because you can't see the changes that easily if it's stretched out like this.
Good point. Tsecho, you also raised your hand again.
Thanks. My main concern is the almost everything table. That title is, I don't even know, confusing. And also the column headings. For instance, date, the way it's formatted, it's different from channel and the rest of them. And also they're not easy to read. But most importantly, I would first decide what I want to present with that table, because it just looks like it's one of the original tables in the data view. So it's not a very useful visual to begin with, because am I supposed to just read the entire table? I would first decide what I'm trying to present to the audience.
So this was the one DAX mistake that we also included. While we are talking about this date, so definitely, Tsecho, bad label there. Like, what does that even mean? If you have so many different dates in your data, you should give a more descriptive name. But just looking, so this is a really simple mistake, but anyone can spot something here. Maybe not a mistake, just yeah, a way that you could do it better. Yeah.
Adhering and Michael, I see you just raised your hands. Do you want to have a crack at it? Oh,
Sorry,
Kelly
my
also
hand
raised.
was up before we
Oh,
DAX.
okay.
I'm not a DAX expert at all, so I'm not going to comment on that DAX. But I think you have a function to date or something like that that you can actually change numerical dates to an actual date. You also handle that maybe in the Power Query of things that you don't battle too much with date keys in here. Then actually I wanted to chat about that count extend amount before Sven has spoken about that, so I'm not going to go into that again. The most important things for me about chart or cards is they highlight they are a highlight of your important information, and then putting them at the bottom is not good practice. You always want to take the focus to the top left, state the most important information, then that's generally what you put into cards. So I would definitely put the cards at the top. And then without going again into the whole table versus visual approach, one way that I had that could maybe be the midway between the scroll left and right, the customer want to view everything into a table. I had report requirements in the past where they actually wanted a lot of information in a table and you could not get away from that. That is what the client wants. Because they want to download it into Excel and analyze it or whatever their case reasons is. But how I did that is I would take abbreviated visual of that data, which Ezra is suggesting, and then give them the option to draw through to that data that is just a table. And then I would take that table view and I put that in a separate page that is just the table full of data. So if you want to go into the detail of that, you go to that. The rest is more Power BI filtered.
Kind of best of both worlds approach.
Yeah, so you're giving the client what he wants, but you're also Power BIing it up a bit.
Gents,
like
I'm sorry, I do need to step in here. I'm worried about the time. So, I mean, at most we can do another minute or two, but even if we could stop sooner than that, it might be better.
Okay, I did see we had
Well,
one.
if you guys want to skip the flash,
okay.
I can always do it next time. This is an interesting conversation. So.
Yeah, I'm not against that.
Stick to the schedule,
yeah.
or we say.
No, there might be a reason why people came for that. So yeah, let's stick to the schedule. Okay. Can I maybe, Stefan, I'll just show you the last one I think that may have been missed. It's just this red and green. Colorblind people would not notice the difference between that. And I think that's a mistake that we all easily make. So using red and green next to each other.
Absolutely, yeah. And also, you only have to highlight one of those. You don't have to highlight both red and green. You can just have green for the good ones or red for the bad ones, depending on what you want to focus on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think MS dashboard is nice and crispy now. If I don't know if you have any final comment, Tiaan or Sven. Otherwise, you can move on to the BI Flash.
Jeez, I just feel bad for him. I mean, anyway. All right, no, guys, thank you for that. I think it was great audience participation in there as well. So thanks to the rest of the team and to Stefan and Riaan for doing such an amazing, ugly job. Okay, cool. Tiaan, you are one of our regulars, so thank you for helping and thank you for stepping up to do a BI Flash. It is over to you. As soon as you're ready, just jump in. Thanks. Tiaan, in case you don't know, you're on mute. Desperately trying to unmute. I actually can't unmute. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. I'm not used to Zoom, so when I started sharing my screen, suddenly all the other stuff disappeared. So I got lost there. All right, so I have created a very simple report, which is just based on a task list, and I've added some filters and a date filter and a username, and luckily I didn't use a scroll bar here, otherwise I might have been roasted with that. So I've published this, and I have my report, and I would now like to publish this to a dashboard and only see the stuff that I want to see. For example, I want to see my tasks and only for a certain date. So you can, if you want to publish the whole dashboard, you can do that, and that will publish it with your with the filters that you can select. But then if you maybe want to subscribe to that dashboard and only see yours based on the date, it's not going to happen. So I'm going to go back to my report builder, and I've created a second page, which I'm going to use for content to export to my dashboard or pin it to a dashboard. And here is my full data set. So if I want to see only the stuff that is due for today, that is quite a simple one. So you all might know about it. On dates, we have an option to filter on a relative date. And I would like to say everything that is for today, filter that. And then now I can only see the ones that is for today, but I still see everybody's task. So how to overcome that? I created a measure for myself in my task list where I use the user principal name. Now that returns the email address or the principal name of the person that is currently viewing the report. This only works in a measure, so that's why I had to do it in a measure and not a column. And then I return a 1 if it matches the email address and a 0 if it doesn't. So then I can quite easily just add a filter. I lost it. Let me just add that field again. So I can say, right, just show me the ones where that is 1. And right now I'll only see the items where these are mine, and this is the current due date. So I've already done this at the top one here, and I've published it. So let me go back. So what I typically do if I want to have stuff that I use specifically to pin in a dashboard, I might create a hidden page and just a link to it so I can get to that page and pin it, and then hopefully other people don't see it. So here are the items, and I can now decide I want to pin this one to an existing dashboard, and I can go to that dashboard. Right, so on this visual on the dashboard, I will not only see the items that is relevant to me and relevant to a specific date. And if I choose to subscribe to get an email every day on this, it will abide by those filters. So I will only see my items, and tomorrow I will only see the items that's for the 17th and the day after that for the 19th. So very basic run through, but if you didn't know that functionality was there, you might hit your head against a few rocks to try and figure that out. Right, that's my flash, hopefully under the few minutes that I had. Any questions?
Tiaan, well done there. Yes, actually, just check if there are any questions. Quite right.
Can I come in?
Please do.
Okay.
Tiaan, do you use a lot of dashboard? I know a lot of people refer dashboard, but they mean actually the mean report in Power BI, because dashboard is limited.
Yeah, so we
I
do
agree
use
with
it.
you. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I use it quite in a few places where guys have a lot of reports and they want to see the highlights of those reports sitting in one place and then access it from there. So almost like let's call it a menu system almost, so they can see the highlights of it and then go through. Except for that, not a lot. No.
Thanks.
Okay, Tiaan, that's precisely what a BI Flash is meant to be. So thank you. You hit it on the nail on the head. Wonderful trick for us to use. Quick and easy if you know how to do it. So well done. And I think it's actually a really cool trick to use. All right, I am going to share my screen, and we're going to move on to the PowerPoint quickly. All right, please tell me if you can see the call for volunteers page.
Yeah, I can see it.
Nice. Okay. All right. So look, there's just 2 items left on the agenda. One is to call for volunteers, and the other one is to issue the prize, the Enterprise DNA prize. So anyway, before we do the prize, I put on the screen the dates of the user groups sessions for the rest of this year. There is a regular pattern that we follow, except this time around we broke that pattern. We normally meet from January every second month. Okay, so January, March, May, and so on. So we skipped January for various reasons, but now we're in February. But then we're going to go straight into the normal cycle again. So March, May, July. It's always the last Thursday of the month. And those are the dates. Okay. And then Stefan was very, very creative with his episodes. So today was episode 1, all about Emmett and his dashboard roast. Now what has to happen is we need a volunteer for each one of these future episodes to actually go and do a better job at the Power Query phase of that model. Similarly, better modeling, including business analysis, calculations, calculated columns, measures, and date tables, that type of story. Then we can move to advanced calculations, including DAX Studio, Tabular Editor, all those external tools. And then right at the end, we could do some visualization best practice. So I really want to emphasize, please don't be intimidated, overwhelmed, worried that you can't do it. There are many, many people who can do it. It just might feel slightly uncomfortable, but I encourage you to just jump in and please do try it. If it is that you're a bit nervous, but you're tempted to volunteer, you are welcome to draw on myself, my colleagues, Rian and Stefan and his colleagues, at Intellect. We're happy to help just to make it all work. So please do feel like you can volunteer. In fact, we are urging people to volunteer, because otherwise what happens is, between SADO and Intellect, we put a lot of time and effort into just even organizing these things, let alone also doing the presentations and so on. All right, so is anyone brave enough to offer a volunteer for episode 2?
Sven, I love Power Query, so I don't mind doing something there if nobody else wants to step up for that.
Adrian, thank you. I mean, you are from Intellect and you have presented before, so I don't want to abuse your generosity. However, if there is no one else, I will gladly accept your volunteering attitude. Anyone else? I mean, there are others who've got hands up, Ezra and Tejo, but I think that's from previously.
Oh, I have a question, Sven, just quickly.
Oh, okay, yes.
Would let's say episode 4, for example, would it be building on to the outputs of episode 3?
Yes, that would make it much easier, but you'll have plenty of time from, it's 2 months apart. So the answer would be yes.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Ezra, did you have a question or a comment? I'm only asking just because your hand is up.
No,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Okay, so Stefan has put his email address in the chat. I'm trying to get people to okay, Michael was going to do number 5. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so let me just say, Michael, 5. I think it looks like, Adrian, you're going to be doing number 2, so that's cool. Anyone comfortable doing number 3? We're going to keep asking. In fact, we will do so again next time around. Okay, just because we're slightly short of time. Okay, all right, so that's cool. We've made decent progress. Is there anyone who's keen to do a BI flash next time around? There must be someone here. There must be.
Yeah, the idea to do a flash is just like we had now. It's just a quick, even if it's 5 minutes, that might be too long. Not that there's really a time limit on these things, but just a quick something cool that you did in the last 2 months or something, and then you want to show it to the rest of the guys as a group. Even if
always
it's
happy to
really,
volunteer,
really
but I'm quite happy to give other people a chance as well.
Well, we'll keep you in reserve there, Tiaan. Thank you. But I really would like to try and get more volunteer participation from the community. You'll see it's not as scary as you think. It really isn't.
I can provisionally
yes,
try
Tejo, you're going to do it.
Episode 4.
Nice. Tejo, you and I, we can talk. Don't worry. We'll sort it out. Okay.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Nice. Well done. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm happy to do the modeling one if we need to. Otherwise, we'll look for some volunteers. Okay. All right. Excellent. I'm worried about the time. I said there were 2 things, volunteers and DNA, but I forgot that we also have to do the Slido thing quickly. So let me do that. Although maybe it is better I leave it right to the very end. Okay. that is the end of the presentation. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of my PowerPoint. All right, so in this case, please, for those who, so I've just, are you seeing my my browser?
Slido.
You see my slider. Okay, that's going to be the result. I'm going to click go on the survey. Please, if you haven't logged into Slido, we do need your feedback because it's an important question. What is your preference for attending future user group meetings? Okay. Now, if you can just pay careful attention, it's in person, or it's online, or it's hybrid. But if it's hybrid, there's actually quite a lot of extra logistics and technological stuff that has to be done, which means we're not really able to do it unless we get some more volunteers. So it's either in person or it's online, but preferably not both unless there are extra volunteers, please. So we've only got 4 responses. So if you missed it right at the very beginning, there was a little link that I posted. Let me just go and scroll to it so I can get it again. I'm just going to paste it one last time so it's there for everyone. The votes are ticking up, which is good. We've got 8. How many people? We had 21 in the meeting at one point. I think some people have dropped off. We're up to 15. So, okay. Obviously, we've got a couple of organizers here, so that we're not going to vote. But the answer there is we've got to get to at least 10, 11, 12 people, please. All right, we're on 10, 60% in person. Okay, so bear in mind that would be then the intellect officers, which are at Melrose Arch.
Where do I vote? Yeah. I mean, I don't see it. Where do I vote?
Have you
to polls if you're inside of?
Yeah.
Have you used the link? I've just resent it now. Just click on that link.
No, I can't see the link. Which one?
Okay, click in Zoom in the chat. There's a chat
in
window
the
that
chat.
you've got to
Okay, yeah.
grab that. Yeah.
Oh, okay, in there. Let me go there.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And in person. Okay, here it is.
All right. So survey, we've got 13 now, and we've got 57%, 36, and 7. Okay, so that's in person. All right. So look, we'll be in touch in terms of communication. I actually just wanted to make that comment as well. There are 2 user groups, as I mentioned. The one, should we say, my one is using the Microsoft community, which is still a relatively new platform. It's not brilliant. So actually, I think if I can just encourage people, definitely use the meetups. It's easier to communicate, and that's obviously the one where also RSVPs are quite important. So we'll definitely be communicating that way. If we can't make it in person, it'd be nice to have an option to attend online. Okay, I'm just reading the chat there. Okay. Yes, who volunteered to help? Okay. Okay. So Janine, you'd gone with hybrid. Okay. All right. Very last thing now is actually the oh no, we're up to 14 now. Sorry, 57, 36, 7. Okay. Okay. The last thing, I'm going to stop the poll now. Thank you. The last thing is we're going to award the prize, the Enterprise DNA prize. So just so that you're aware, we've been offering that at every one of our sessions, just as a nice giveaway. It is donated by the guys at Enterprise DNA. It is valued at $500 US dollars. So a very, very worthwhile prize. Excellent training material. You will, if you win, you obviously get all access to their training. They do request kindly that that you actually, if you are eligible, if you want to be up for the prize, that you actually participate intentionally and properly and eagerly in their program, as opposed to just signing on from time to time. So that is one very important request. So if it is okay, so I'm going to put everyone's names who did the RSVP up to this morning. Okay, so if you didn't RSVP later than this, I'm afraid you aren't eligible. Equally, if you aren't here now, you can't win the prize. And lastly, if you've chosen to win but you don't think you can participate that well or properly, then please decline and we'll spin for anyone else. Okay. All right. So I'm going to hit the spin and off we go. Let's see who gets it. Can you all see my screen, by the way?
We can see the spinning wheel, yeah. I see our names
Okay.
also in there.
Okay, so Pralisha Moodley, I don't think she's in attendance. So I'm afraid
no, I don't
think
her.
she is. Yeah. Remove, go. Okay, hopefully we're going to get someone who's still here. Jeffrey, no. Karabo, Sean. There is a Sean here. Is that the same person?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yay.
Is that you? Karabo
Yeah,
Sean
that's
is
me,
Sean
that's
on the
me.
Zoom list. Okay, well done. So are you keen to participate in the program? And if so, then you're welcome. The prize is yours.
Yeah, sure. Can you please further explain what it's about?
It's a video, online video training course all about Power BI. It's done by the people at Enterprise DNA. If you were to want to buy it yourself, it would be $500. So it's a very worthwhile prize. But they do, send newsletters. They do have user participation and things like that. And they want someone to participate in that community.
Yeah. No, I'm totally down because I'm currently new to Power BI and I really want to go into it.
Okay. In which case, I've just in the chat posted my email address. Please send it to. Please just email me, and then I will introduce you to the guys at Enterprise DNA. All right,
awesome.
cool. We're 2 minutes over our, should we say, extended time. So thank you for hanging in there, everyone. I thoroughly enjoyed the evening. Stefan and Rian, thank you for co-hosting and organizing and so on. And we'll see you next month, okay, at the end of March. All right, thanks, everyone.
Cool. And then, if you wanted to see, I was kind of keeping track of who was identifying all the, making all the roasting the dashboard. So I'm just quickly going to share my screen here. Screen 2.
So this is the final credits, basically.
Yeah. So yeah, this is kind of what we have here. Is looking at the chat on this side, but yeah, this is the pivot table that we created. So I was just kind of keeping track. I don't think this is 100% accurate, but I was trying to keep track of who mentioned these things. Obviously, like some guys were pretty on top of it. So we have Ezra, we mentioned a few items, and then also Michael Johnson and Tiaan Rossouw mentioned a few things. Pretty much everyone mentioned the title, so those points go to everyone as well. And then Rian himself also identified some. Of course, we had Adrian as well. And yeah, out of a total, so we had 29 categories, 29 items listed here. We actually added a few of them that we didn't initially find, Rian and myself. But yeah, we got 16 eventually. There's 16 things that we roasted. So yeah, unfortunately, there wasn't enough time to go through all of them, but I'm sure given time, we would have found all of them pretty quickly.
I'm disappointed it's not visualized in Power BI.
I should have made like a live connection or a direct connect here.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on, get with it, Stefan. Anyway, okay. Well, thanks everyone, and enjoy the rest of your evening. And thanks for joining us.
Awesome.